Creating a cascading parameter field in Crystal Reports requires a little bit of setup and making sure the field is used to filter correctly, but the procedure itself is not too different from setting up a record filter, except for the parameter field itself. First, as usual, we start a report, as we've got here, and bring in at least one table from our sample database for the data. We need to decide what we're going to use the parameter field to look for, and in this case we'll filter for customers in a chosen city. There's a reason we won't go to the region, the state or province. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. We go over to the Field Explorer and tell it we want to create a new parameter field. We can right-click on Parameter Field and click New. The name we can put in just about anything, but calling it something like Narrow Down for simplicity would make some sense. We're working with text, so the data type as string is fine. Can leave that as it is. But in order to use the cascading part, we have to go over here and change the list of values from static to dynamic. That is changeable, because we figured to select a different city each time. The prompt group text should be as simple as possible, having it say something like select country and city is about as straightforward as it's going to get. We have to go with a new data source, so we can look down here, make sure that it's set for new. That makes sense. And then we have to tell it how to actually do the cascading part. In the space here where it says click to add item, we give it the first click. This starts the cascade, as it were. And we're going to tell it to go to the highest level of data for this item we have, namely country. When we create a cascading parameter field, you see, we go from big to small, as it were. But we don't want to go over here and actually click to create the parameter yet. The reason is we don't want to create the parameter itself till we get to the level we're interested in, and that we do on the next level here. We click to add another item, and this time it'll be city. Once we add city, that's the one we want to specify, narrow down to all the cities within a certain country, we can then go over here and click to create parameter. Why not region? Well, it so happens that this database doesn't have them all filled in, that is, all the states and provinces, and that would make the parameter selection glitch. In real life, hopefully, that wouldn't be the case. Now that we're down to city, having clicked over here, we told it to create the parameter. Once we've gotten to whichever country, go to the specific city. It knows it'll get its final selection that way. We don't have to worry about the value options items down here. They're useful, but not critical for this setup. So now we've got the first part done. I'll go ahead and click OK. The other major piece of the setup is to use whatever the parameter provides, that is, whatever it wants to filter for, in this case, the city in question. So we now have to go up to the third toolbar and find the Select Expert. This allows us to feed the result of the parameter field to the filter. And what are we going to filter for? City. So we give that a click in the box here, and then click OK at the top right. And as you can see, we now have to set the actual filter, and not just to any value. We need it to be is equal to. And equal to what? Well, over here in the drop-down, finally, we can tell it to go with whatever city was selected by our cascading parameter field. Narrow down city. We can use the Hide Formula button here, click it, Show Formula, to make sure that the code was set up correctly, this little bit of formula. Indeed, it was. So now we've got everything ready, and we can OK out of this box. And at this point, the setup merely requires that we lay out the report as we usually do. We don't even need to get the parameter field into the report. We can use the regular city field. Here, just start off with company name, drag that over into the details section. You can then grab a hold of the first address field, and park that right next to it. Grab a hold of city, same thing. If we want to be careful, we can shorten the city field just a bit, give ourselves a bit more room here. Same thing with region. Just drag it in, position as we wish. Since the regions are usually abbreviations, shortening that down is probably not going to be an issue. And finally, country. Just drag it in. And as before, if we want, we can shorten that up a bit so it'll fit on the page as it normally should. There we go. And if we now go to our preview, the dialog box pops up, asks us for country and city. Right up at the top, just as we typed it, the text to prompt the user. Pick whichever country here, say Canada, and pick any city, Montreal, and then click OK at the bottom of that. We turn out to have at least one company we do business with in Montreal. But if I now go up here and click the refresh button, prompt for new parameter values, click OK. Can choose another country, say Brazil, and pick whatever city, Rio de Janeiro, and then click OK there. Turns out we have 3 companies that we do business with there. Again, the reason we left out region was because we wanted to prevent the report from malfunctioning if the parameter couldn't find a region for a given country. But the report is definitely now more flexible. And the working principle is the same. We just have to have a complete chain of connections from country down to city or address or even customer. That's the key thing for a cascading parameter field.